Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the Lower East Side here in the city, powered by the East Side Community Network and sponsored by none other than the Ford Foundation. Now, a new content partner to the newbridgedetroit.com. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Givens Davidson.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people on the East Side of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you listen to us on. We drop a new episode every week, so be sure to turn on those notifications. Today, we are happy to welcome Tawana Petty of the Detroit Community Technology Project. Tawana is a mother, social justice organizer, youth advocate, poet, and author. She is intricately involved in water rights organizing, data and digital privacy rights, education, racial justice, and equity work. Tawana, finally, welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you. It's been a long time coming, so hopefully we can make this a regular thing. We have like a suite of unofficial co-hosts. Hopefully you'll fall into that category. Certainly a lot going on in the world, guys. How was your weekends? How are you? Donna, how are you? How was your weekend?
It was good. It was really good. I got a chance to hang out on the last day of my sister and brother-in-law's boat with my granddaughter, Luna. And anytime I spend with Luna is a great day because I never knew how much fun I would have being a grandmother. I've heard other people say being a grandmother is the best thing in the world. And it's like, oh, yeah. And now that I am, it's like, oh my goodness. So yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun.
Tell you who large and in charge. You understand me? Luna. Tawana, if you had been at Donna's wedding, you would have seen Luna say, I don't care about what's going on with grandma and her getting married. This is my time. This is my show. And I'm going to act as such. She is so cute.
And it's special because Luna was born with some health issues. And so when she was about 7 months old, she had open heart surgery and she was a frail child. And there is absolutely nothing frail about her. It is like when she had her heart repaired, she just came out. And so, yeah, I get teary-eyed just thinking about it. But yeah, that's my heart. Absolutely my heart.
God is
and
good.
The heart of everybody around us. I mean, she has so much spunk and so much energy and just loves to try new things. And I could go on and on and on and say that I have the perfect granddaughter, but I'm sure everybody thinks their grandchildren are perfect.
She is perfect. I'll never forget the first time that I met her. She came right to me. She was like at home. I'm like, look at the baby.
And she smiled. And at that time, she was not doing a whole lot of smiling. But when she saw Orlando, she smiled. I was like, oh, you think you're something, don't you, Orlando? Getting smiling, kind of a smiling child. I would like pay for a smile at that point. I was special, but at that point, you had to be somebody to get a smile.
That's
so
right. I connected with Luna. Tawana, how are you? How was your weekend? Do anything fun?
I'm doing good. I had a good weekend as well. I went to the farmer's market and I bought up almost all the green tomatoes. So I've been on kind of like a fried green tomatoes kick the last couple of days. And yeah, that's one of my faves right there. So I had a pretty decent weekend.
Y'all remember that movie, Fried Green Tomatoes? Who was that? Kathy Bates? Yeah.
Yeah. I like that movie.
I did too.
I like Kathy Bates. I think she's a goddess. I think she's an excellent actress.
Y'all, was that the movie where she said Tawanda?
I don't remember. It's either that or Steel Magnolias. I think it was Steel Magnolias when she said that.
Okay.
Wasn't she in that? Okay, I'm
I'm just trying to get my name claimed up in here. I couldn't remember which movie.
So I'm back on the podcast. I missed last week. I was on vacation all weekend. And let me tell you, I did nothing. But lay around and did whatever I wanted to do. You all should know that a ton of friends, both male and female, pressured me into watching Girlfriends on Netflix. And so I'm addicted. I never watched it. I never
Oh, me
watched it
too.
when it was on the air. My toxic teenage masculinity would not allow me to watch Girlfriends. It's like, this ain't for me. It's Girlfriends. I'm not watching that, whatever. But watching it now and seeing that they're at the age that I'm currently at and their experience, I'm like, oh my God, this is so crazy and relatable. And how they were really, leading in on, leading and leaning in on some conversations that are now just regular, from natural hair to conversations about Black people going to therapy. I mean, just
Just and
interracial.
all the relationship dynamics that they expose. I've been binging on Girlfriends too. And so, one of the great things is I've been doing it and Camille's been doing it. So Luna does know the theme song to Girlfriends.
It's unforgettable. And that's one theme song that I don't skip through. Like, I let it play. It's so classic. I'm like, Angie Stone killed that. That's Angie Stone. Did you know that?
Oh, wow. You know how much I love Angie Stone. She was on one of the episodes, wasn't
She was
she?
the publicist on one of the episodes. I'm like, look at Angie Stone.
Everybody's on there. I'm like, wait a minute. I had no idea that Kelly was on there from have you gotten to that part from Destiny's Child, Kelly?
Yeah. I'm there.
I was like,
oh man, she was
there.
foul, Donna. Ooh, she was foul. I'm like, man,
Right.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been watching that.
I draw a parallel between Joan and Tony and Issa and Molly, and I can see the extent to which Girlfriends contributed to current art,
Well, you should know that Larry Wilmore is an executive producer on Girlfriends and the co-creator of Insecure. And
Right.
so I see and can sense that level of continuity in it. And Larry Wilmore loves to let Issa Rae take all the credit and spotlight and talk about it, but he is literally the co-creator of the show.
I'm a fan of his. Next up, Living Single. I'm just going to go back and I'm watching all the Black TV sitcoms I did watch when I had kids and I was little. I didn't have time. Now I have time to watch all the old stuff. So what about you? Have you watched any of those shows, Tawana?
Yeah, I got to dip back into Girlfriends, but I've been binge watching Moesha.
Ooh.
I will tell you, I was like, wait, I don't like Moesha on here. I liked her growing up. I was like, that told me something about myself. I was watching the episode.
I didn't like Moesha back then as a person, and I decided not to engage in the show. But I did watch. I binged Sister because that's the Jackie Harry.
Yeah.
That was her show. Like, that's Jack
and 227. I've been watching 227 too.
Yeah. And
so
I've been watching
Lovecraft
Country.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, Lovecraft Country. Oh my goodness. You will love it.
Yes.
I predict how you'll feel, but I predict you will love it because it is just everything. That show is poetic. And since you are a poet, I know you will love it. There's some lines in there that are just so magical. So I heavily encourage you to watch it, especially it just gets better. Every episode to me is better than the last one. But the way it delves into our history and our identities is just crazy to me.
It's like an amalgamation of so many genres, Tawana. You have period piece, you got noir, you got horror, you have suspense, you have sci-fi, you have all of the things, and it all being personified through this very Black cast, and it's so good. I watched it. Did you see the latest episode, Donna? I'm stressed and I was emotional.
Yeah.
It's so good. So you have to catch it. It comes on HBO, Tawana. I got to log in if you need it because that's how good.
You can say that.
I'm definitely going to check it out.
That is just humor. Haha, Orlando.
Oops, it's time for Fresh Off the Press, news that we are thinking about. If you have pieces that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Donna, Fresh Off the Press.
Amid COVID, Detroit imagines a master plan for its public parks by Anna Clark, published yesterday on Bridge Detroit magazine or Bridge Detroit newspaper. I'm not sure which it
Just Bridge
is.
Detroit. Just Bridge.
Bridge Detroit. Okay, I'm sorry, Bridge Detroit, making it too long. It's an article that really details the importance of public parks in our community, period. The fact that we need to invest more in our public parks, and also that they have never been more important than they are right now. We need safe places to go outdoors. So it highlights some of the parks, starting with the Viola Leosa Park. I always get that last name wrong. And the installations there, the green infrastructure that's in some places, and just the fact that schools and community groups and young people are dependent on the parks for their social life. So I think it's an important story. I think that revisiting the gyms inside of our community and doing something with our parks is important. Something other than those boulders that they decided to put around all of our parks a few years ago and call that park improvement. I'm happy to see the city have a approach. And anytime the city has a master plan to public amenities, all of them not based on what neighborhood you're in, but just we have a master plan for public amenities, I think that's the right direction for the city to move in.
I do too. And, especially when I think about the parks that we frequent on the east side, be it Chandler Park, Aberforth Park, Baldock Park, these beautiful east side parks. It gives me comfort to know that the folks in City Hall are, number one, thinking about putting people to work to take care of these parks in a real equitable and sustainable way. But number two, just figuring out how to manage the need for recreation while also making the land productive. Chandler Park has been leading in that when we talk about sustainability with its conservation campus. And I think that overall the city of Detroit is looking at ways and mechanisms to manage our land better and our water better in these
Detroit
parks.
has an abundance of vacancy. And I hope it goes farther than figuring out what to do with existing parks and moves into the area of what to do in places where residents have bundled vacant land to create something new. In the McDougall Hunt neighborhood, you have the Bailey Park project. In the East Canfield neighborhood, I think it is called the West End on the east side. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but you have Brewer Park. And you have resident-driven organizations, East Canfield Consortium and the Bailey Park Neighborhood Development Corporation, that were formed by residents who want to change their communities, creating these parks. My concern is that unless the city is creating a greenway, they're not willing to invest and commit to new parks being formed by residents. And I hope that changes because we have so much vacancy, and I can't think of a better use of vacancy than new park space that residents maintain.
And I think there's an opportunity for advocacy on part of residents who have started these public spaces. The article in Bridge also highlights the planned closure of so many of our beautiful parks that are gyms and neighborhoods that was the impetus to form many conservancies like Friends of Rouge Park, the Chandler Park Promise Coalition, which is now the Chandler Park Conservancy, to advocate for the city to keep these parks open and maintained. I do think that there is room and an opportunity for residents while we are, going through a master planning process for their parks, their creation to be included. I mean, isn't that what equity is? Isn't that what inclusion is?
When you demolish, is it 21,000 homes that we are now and counting that we're bragging about demolishing? That's 21,000 vacant spaces. In almost every instance, that land is still vacant. And so one of the things the Eastside Community Network does is we encourage people to come up with productive reuses of vacant space. And now the city wants to demolish at least 8,000 more structures, bringing that to about 30,000 total vacant parcels. So we're going to need a mix of responses, hopefully a whole lot of affordable housing, hopefully more housing being built and developed than torn down, because we have a housing need in our community that is unreal. But also, parks, urban gardens, other things that we're going to need the city and other policymakers to help find ways to expedite reuses of vacant land. It's one
Yeah.
thing to put it in a book and say, here's some things you can possibly do. And it's another thing to make it possible, to put some resources behind it, to change zoning, and also to change some of the rules and restrictions you have on the use of land so that we can get more people doing that with it. Can you have too many parks? Is the question. If local people are willing to maintain them, mow them, decorate them, all of that, can you have too many?
Yeah. Can we tip our hat to Brad Dick, who has been at Parks and Recreation, I think, since 2003, and who has been a very visible and responsive leader when it comes to our concerns about our parks. I know he tries to be, and he's been a tremendous partner, I know, to Donna and the rest of the Chandler Park Conservancy Board, as well as um, other groups, other conservancies and friends of parks around the city. I think this is the step in the right direction. Tawana, do you have anything to add?
Well, I want to shamelessly plug the Detroiters Bill of Rights, which is trying to amend the city charter with a right to recreation, which would ensure that children, elderly people, women, people with disabilities are met with safe, accessible urban green spaces. So yeah, wanting to just ensure that any adoption of that type of expansion is thinking about those things. Like if you think about a lot of parks, are they really accessible to folks with wheelchairs or other disabilities? And so yeah, thinking that it's just really important that the charter, like Donna was saying, that we have some policy that is put in place that prevents us from being in a space where we have to be imagining parks in our community. And so yeah, so hoping the Detroiters Bill of Rights succeeds in that.
And we signed on to it, and I participated in a couple conversations. I was actually invited by Tawana, so I want to thank Tawana for the invitation. I'm really, really excited about the Bill of Rights. I think it needs more recognition. Maybe we can expand on that a little bit after this. What's in the news segment? Orlando, what do you have?
All right, fresh off the press. Governor Whitmer signs Clean Slate Michigan, allowing automatic felony expungement. That is by Riley Beggin in partnership with Bridge, Michigan. This, of course, is a long time coming, a hot button issue as it relates to this slate of bills that she signed, of course, is expungement for marijuana related expenses now that recreational marijuana is legal in the state of Michigan. It was one of her campaign promises. But what it does is it sets, some boundaries or parameters around expungement for small misdemeanor offenses and even some felonies by the years, beginning with people becoming eligible, I think 180 days out from her signing the bill. And she signed the slate of bills yesterday. So beginning 2 years, actually not 180 days, beginning 2 years from the date it was signed, the Clean Slate law will expunge misdemeanors 7 years after sentencing and felonies 10 years after sentencing when they're released from incarceration or whichever comes later. It also, other bills that she signed in addition to the Clean Slate bill will go into effect 180 days from Monday. And one of them will make it possible for misdemeanors to be expunged after 3 years, felonies after 7 years, and serious misdemeanors or a single day felony to 5 years, which will shorten the waiting time to apply for expungement, right? Because right now, I think is years out. Felonies or misdemeanors from within the same 24-hour period, that lawmakers have deemed one bad night will be eligible. It does also bar certain crimes from being able to be expunged, whether it is domestic violence or a crime that you may have committed that warranted a life prison sentence, sexual abuse, child abuse, and DUIs, which is also another contentious thing that legislators debated over, because that sometimes can technically be a part of that one bad night kind of behavior. And then, of course, it creates the process for marijuana misdemeanors and felonies to be expunged. I don't think it is a broad expungement of all marijuana crimes. And so we still have some work to do in that area, but it is creating the process. And so Governor Whitmer actually getting some stuff done and signing some bills into law despite domestic terrorists seeking her life and the life of other people in the legislature. So, we're highly critical when we need to be on this show, but we also give a nod when it's due. So hats off to Governor Whitmer for, number one, helping Michigan to stay safe, for working with the FBI so that she and a lot of our friends, this is very personal for me, a lot of our friends in the legislature, we have a friend who's the lieutenant governor of this state. He's a friend whose safety was at risk, and still trudging ahead. I know this made some people mad, but she doesn't care. So yeah, Donna, you have anything to add? Tawana, anything to add?
Well, absolutely. One, I'm glad that she kept us safe. Two, it is so crazy to me that we pass legislation and we know it's important, and we say it'll take effect 2 years from now. Why not now? That's you kick a can down the road and you give enough time for people in the legislature to reverse it or to somehow handicap the bill so it doesn't do what you want it to do. The second thing is we need to change. We need criminal justice reform. We can do all of the expungement we want, but you cannot erase a criminal trail on I'm sorry, a trail, an email trail, or a internet trail documenting what's happened in these cases. So many times when I do when you have to run background checks, and we have to run them whenever we hire a new employee. And you get the background checks, and you may have all of this stuff, including every arrest. And it's really hard. When I first started seeing these things, I didn't know whether to look as this is an arrest, but I don't see what is the disposition of that. And so, how do we seal off people's criminal records so that they are not available? Even if the record has been expunged, the record of the arrest is available, the record of the prosecution is available online, even when there's an expungement that took place. And so that becomes one of those things that I think we have to look at privacy and the Bill of Rights around what's available on the internet to make sure that people are not forever damned because maybe I got arrested for something. The charges were dropped, but an employer can see that arrest. That arrest record stays with me, even with an expungement. So I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm just wondering what is the impact going to be from an employer standpoint when I run that criminal background and I see it. Is there a way to seal off what's out there on the internet?
That's right, which is why I say, it doesn't go far enough. I think undergirded with to all of this is the economic disparity that comes when one gets into trouble, and that barrier preventing them access to economic mobility through a job or even a career. And the governor is touting that this will go away. That remains to be seen. That piece remains to be seen when we talk about increasing access to economic opportunity through jobs and career trainings and things of that sort. You're absolutely right, Donna. I agree with you. Tawana, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, and especially if we're thinking about Detroit, it's one of the reasons why I participated with the Actionable Intelligence for Social Policy Initiative, and we co-authored a toolkit called Centering Racial Equity Throughout Data Integration. So every aspect of the data lifecycle, and this is one of the if governments actually implement this, way of integrating data, those things would happen because they would be looking at the disparities that happen to communities when when their information is trailing them and literally creating a stream or a looping cycle of injustice is what we call it, through the work that I've done with our
Here's the
data
data.
bodies. Is
You
it's
know
a
what?
literal looping cycle of injustice. And so yeah, so if you center racial equity throughout the entire data life cycle, you'll start to remove those disparities at every point of the data trail or the data stream. And so I agree. I think immediately needs to be expunged. And I think that once someone serves their time, and I think the minute that and I don't think everybody who gets time should serve time, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I
Exactly.
think the minute that someone serves some time and they get out, then it should not be impacting how they make a livelihood. I think that that's an unfair double dip at criminalizing a person who has already paid their debt to society.
Hmm. I have this book that talks about the new Jim Code, and
Oh yeah, Ruha Benjamin, that's a comrade of mine.
oh my goodness, I love Ruha Benjamin,
Yeah.
and I just love reading it, and I just love listening to you talk about it because you have some words. Okay, I just want to say about you have some words. You describe it as like, oh, that's so eloquent. I wish I said it that way.
She's my birthday twin too. She's a actual comrade of mine, and she's my birthday twin. She's brilliant,
Yes,
tremendously brilliant.
Out to the
Yeah,
Virgos. Shout out to
I,
the Virgos.
the name, the new Jim Code. I was like, I have to buy this,
yeah.
and I have not regretted it. It just opens your eyes. If I was at a conference in Baltimore a couple years ago, it was a Reclaiming Vacant Properties conference, and there were some people who were bragging about this data integration, how they could look up a person, they could find out about their public benefits and about their social just I mean their arrest records, and they could find about their benefit records, and they could have all of this data at their footsteps. Yes, isn't that a cool look at that race after technology? That's
Yeah,
that
abolitionist tools for the new Jim Code.
yes, thank you. I can never remember the name, but that cover is um so captivating. Anyway, they were talking about this thing as if it was a good thing, and so I think I was the person in the room who was really horrified. Now I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is, one of the worst states to live in as a Black person, or one of the worst places to live as a Black person. And these people who were from Milwaukee were describing how they integrated data. And I thought, this is horrible. People who live here have no freedom because all of these data points are following you in ways that nobody wants. Like, I don't want people to know all of my business, okay? I'll tell you a little bit at a time, but I don't want you to know everything about me. Nobody does. We all value privacy, but the privacy of Black people has been so devalued in so many ways. And you get it from the Green Light Project, where I can see where you walk. And, so I think that it's important for us to look at the larger context of how we use data. Why do I need to run a criminal background check every time I hire somebody?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we're living in a biometric industrial complex now where they want gait detection, how you walk. They want emotion detection, what you're thinking. They want face detection. They want mass detection. I mean, and these are lucrative industries, so there's really no incentive for them to slow that down. And so that's why we have to get real clear about the impact that this is having on our communities. And when you look at Greenlight and how it's tied to like a legacy, a literal legacy. Simone Brown, another great book, Dark Matters, she talks about the 18th century lantern laws, where if you were a Black person and you weren't in the presence of a white person, you had to have a lit lantern in front of your face. And so when you think of Project Greenlight and the gentrification in the city, it's really just a replication of an ongoing way of socially controlling Black and Brown communities when they want to make the city feel safe for newer, whiter demographics.
Mhm. Because when the police relationship to Black people is surveillance, control, and really keeping us under control. The police relationship to white people is protection,
Mhm.
but it gets sold to us that we are being protected, right? And yet, you know, that Jill Scott song, "Watching Me," um, and she says,
Yeah.
you keep saying that I'm free. You keep saying that I'm free, but you're watching me. And that's the way I feel whenever I hear about Project Greenlight. You hear about these projects, you hear that they're effective, crime is going up, it's not going down, people feel less safe, people don't feel as though they can call the police and get a reliable response. And yet we keep on pretending, and they keep selling to Black people, which is probably the worst part of it all, that this is what's protecting the Black community.
Yeah.
When I see a police car driving down the street, I don't feel safe.
Mm.
I'm like, wait a minute, are my tail lights working? Did I remember to fix my plate? Am I driving? I feel observed. I
Yeah.
know that when I see a police car follow me, they're running my plate to see if I have insurance on it, looking for a pretext to stop me. This is the way I feel. And I know I'm not alone. So how do we begin shifting that thinking, so that people understand that police don't make you safe?
Hmm. Well, let's get into it. Let's close out this segment and then let's just get right into it. That's going to wrap up the Fresh Off the Press segment. If you have pieces that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at authenticallydetroit at gmail.com, or our email. That was our email. Hit us up on our emails at gmail, authenticallydetroit at gmail.com, or Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Tawana, I really want to give you the opportunity to answer that question that Donna just posed.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the history of policing, right, another good book is Slavery by Another Name. And it talks about like the convict leasing program and how, after slavery ended, that white people who used to own Black people were trying to figure out how to, still get labor done. And so they had to institute like these laws that could be violated, like vagrancy laws and things like that. And so there's this long history of policing being a mechanism for funneling bodies into the criminal justice system for free labor in the U.S. And so those things don't get talked about a lot. And I know that there are wonderful human beings who joined the institution of law enforcement because they wanted to be contributing members in society. But if they were to take a deep analysis as to the ways that they are being forced to respond to safety concerns and things like that, then even the officers themselves would be able to see that they're mostly responding to property and violence, and after the fact, when after situations have taken place. And so, yeah, I agree with you. There's and I talk to parents. It's similar to the way I talk to parents about their children walking around terrified of them. Like you want your child to respect you and to have love and compassion for you, not fear you. Fear that the wrath of God is going to come down on them for every little thing they do. And that's how you feel when a police car is behind you. It's like, what did I do wrong? Even if you've done nothing wrong, you go into immediate, anxiety and fear that either you could lose your life or, you could be incarcerated. And that is not that is not a relationship that any human being should have to another human being, whether they're in a uniform or not in a uniform. And so, yeah, I think we just need to have a deeper dive about what true safety is. And I think we know that true safety is resource communities. You don't have to have an imagination, just go to a resource community and look at the crime stats. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of market research to understand that. And so there just isn't a lot of incentive to have deeper imagination when it comes to Black and brown bodies, because we've been creating free labor for so long in this country that there has to be a mechanism for them to get that from us. And incarceration is that mechanism. And in order to get us in there, they need some kind of enforcement, and law enforcement is the enforcement.
So I have a story to tell a couple, and I want to get your reaction to them. And then I know Orlando has a couple questions, but we were standing on my balcony and looked outside, and we saw a man who's pretty muscular and I think kind of crazy, because I saw him one time with a snake around his neck, and it's like, you can't have snakes, so you can only have small dogs under 25 pounds. Anyway, and cats. But he was standing out there with some big snake, and I was like, I'm not going out by him. Anyway, we saw him beating his girlfriend.
Mm.
And so one of the neighbors screamed, "Stop that." I don't know if she called the police or he called the police, but she went running off. The police came. He told the police that she attacked him, so she was arrested. while she was in jail, trying to defend herself. He was moving other women into the apartment and ended up trashing the apartment and knocking out windows. And that story resonated with me because I had a domestic violence call many years ago where the police threatened to arrest me, and believed that my ex-husband was being abused by me, even though to look at us, obviously I was not going to abuse this man. I was terrified, right?
Mhm.
And so I talked my way out of going to jail, and he ended up going instead. They said we have to take somebody. But, you know, when you look at police as protection, what are the consequences for those stories? It broke my heart when I found out that this woman ended up in legal trouble. Her house is torn apart. She's been brutalized, and now she's had a financial and legal loss because the police didn't do their job. They could have asked people, there were witnesses, and I don't even know if she knew how to defend herself. Another story, I'm living in it was late at night, and there was somebody who had been kind of stalking, harassing me, and it was 4 in the morning. My doorbell kept ringing, and I was home alone, and they kept doing it, and I heard my car alarm go off. So I got scared someone was trying to break into my home, and I called 911. The police came, got in my car, saw there was a young man in my car, pulled him out. I knew, immediately recognized he was a friend of my daughter's who had become stranded and came to my home to seek help. Okay. The police began beating him right in front of me. And I said, wait, I know who he is. I made a mistake. Beat him. Stop moving. They kick him. Stop moving, punching him. And I'm watching them beat. I'm so scared he's going to be killed because they think he's moved too fast. I'm hysterical. They're telling me to go back in the house so I can be safe. And finally, a woman says, ma'am, go in the house. I'll get it taken care of. So she finally called a supervisor. A supervisor came out, said, do you know this man? I said, yes, I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. And I heard them laughing at me. Stop, stop. And they're mocking me. And he finally comes in the house, and I let him in, and he says, everything's okay. And I hear him crying that night.
Mm.
And I will never forget those tears of powerlessness and abuse. And I was like, I'm still the most sorry person in the world. But the thing is, I could do nothing to stop it. And I watched it happen in my own. He did nothing wrong. He was in my car. I called the police. So I guess my question is, how is that protection? One time I reached out for protection, I almost got arrested. Another time I reached out for protection, I watched somebody almost get beaten. I watched somebody get assaulted and possibly, could have escalated from there. So where's the protection here? Why is it that the police consistently get it wrong, in my opinion, in not protecting the people, even when they call and ask for help? And I know I'm not alone in that.
Yeah, I mean, so I think we have to it's a systemic issue, right? So you have in a let's look at a city like Detroit where um there are a lot of things that are being untreated. Uh mental health, a lot of situations in Detroit are being untreated. And you have officers a lot, even though I know at this point a lot don't live in the city, but there are a lot who are on the department who grew up in the city who and I'm not just relegating them to like people who are from Detroit as an example, but I'm y'all gonna have to edit this. So so
We don't
so
have to
basically
go for it.
okay. So here's what I'm trying to say. There are a lot of officers who are on the force who are not getting the support, mental support that they need. And this is not just Detroit. This is all across the globe. So you have humans, flawed humans who are in this profession for one reason or another. Some of them are in the profession because they extension of white supremacy, and just to be honest. But there are others who really genuinely joined the force thinking that they were going to be contributors, have seen some of the worst as far as like crime scenes and things like that, and are out there every day interacting with other humans who are suffering under trauma, and it's a situation that is set up to fail. And this is why officers should not be responding to many of the situations that they respond to. But because city governments all across the world lack imagination, they are not resourcing the departments that should be responding to these situations, and they're ballooning these budgets for law enforcement to be social workers, educators, priests, pastors. I mean, you name it. The police are showing up to be the every aspect of the um situations that happen in our families and our communities, when they should never have been that. Honestly, I think it would be better off if police literally were just protecting property. I mean, because a lot of the officers that are on the job are not emotionally equipped to be dealing with the public. And so maybe they should be stationed at, buildings and protecting property, and let people who can handle interacting with other human beings be the people who are responding to situations. Like, if, and I don't want to romanticize social work, because I know that our community, a lot of times we go in that system and we don't come back out. But let's just say the social working industry was more holistic. Um, there could have been a benefit to someone showing up to your house that day and having some emotional support available for that young man, right? Some resources around where he could go to stay, where he could go get a meal, those sorts of things. But police are not trained to be that. They're trained to respond to crime. And so they show up to situations looking for a criminal. And so that, those are the dialogues that are not happening enough. Is we have these people who are ill-equipped, not getting the support, being told that they shouldn't emote. If you're showing your emotions on the department, what then happens to you? So people are out there suffering emotional breakdowns and things like that, and not able to freely discuss it.
But aren't there people who are also bringing their bias to the job in ways that are dangerous,
Well,
like
that's why I
a
said white
bias about
supremacists and
right and male supremacy, right?
yeah.
So
Mhm.
these women, they start these arguments, and these brothers get and by the time they get there, a woman who is being abused is not being protected by police officers who may in fact be abusing their partners, and who believe really that women are the cause of all violence, and if she hadn't said that or whatever, and it shows up and there's no real accountability. Like, what do you do when that happens? I suppose you could go. And then also, you know, when a white male commits a crime, even when they know it's a criminal, he has humanity and he has rights. And these were black men, by the way, who were doing this to this brother. Okay. When this perceived as a black man, he had a place to live. He was hanging out and got stranded. Okay.
Mhm.
What he really needed was the police to come, see that it was somebody I knew, and say, and me apologize for wasting their time, and then them leaving. Okay. What they didn't need, I was afraid, or this would not have happened. What we didn't need is for them to assault whoever it was. You don't have to assault somebody to arrest them. If I didn't know him, you don't need to assault him. You can handcuff him without assaulting him. There was no attempt to do that. It was from the very beginning just beating. And that's hatred. That's anger. That's something that even if you're protecting property, my car was property, my home was property, still there are people who you are going to interface with. And when those people are dehumanized to you, you can act in any kind of way. You've decided to put him in this slot as criminal, and therefore all of this stuff is okay. And that's how it came across to me. And I just, like I said, I watched it unfold. If I had not seen, I would not necessarily believe how crazy it got and how out of control for no reason. But then you hear about the guy who was sleeping in the car in Atlanta in the Wendy's parking lot or whatever, and he's no longer alive. And
Mhm.
he resisted. Well, what do you claim as resistance? If you pull me a certain way, my body's going to resist. It's a physical response to somebody telling you to do something, but pulling you in a different kind of way. Your body acts to protect you, even if you don't want to. And so, anyway, I'm not trying to spend too much on that. I just think that we really have to think that through, because Black people have called the police on relatives. You had the mother out there in Oakland County. She called the police on her daughter. She felt afraid her daughter would ended up in, juvenile forever. The judge wouldn't let her out because of homework. And it's like, so what did this mother learn? I cannot call the police, and she probably shouldn't. You know what I mean? We've
No,
learned that there's no protection. 911 does not protect us unless you're sending an ambulance.
I
So they put
agree.
the
And
police matter.
yeah. I agree. And I just want to be clear, white supremacy culture does not exempt Black people.
Yeah.
So,
Say that.
and if you think about like the ways that we've been taught to respond to Blackness, to Black bodies, no matter who you are, anti-Blackness is a global phenomenon, right?
Say
So
that.
people who are unhealed, not getting this and that's why I want to talk about the well-being, because if we're going to systemically talk about transforming these systems, we got to think about the individuals that are putting these uniforms on and entering into our communities. That's not exempting them, that's holding them to a deeper accountability. And so like you have a force that does not allow for these people to have emotions,
Yeah.
and so those emotionless people go out into the community in search of criminals. They're being told go out there, shoot to kill, da 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 da, get home safe. And it's like they're not told, hey, you should make sure this person makes it home. Everybody needs to make it home safe. No, the goal is for them to make it home safe by any means necessary. And that type of mentality does not allow for humanity to be a consideration. It takes individuals doing individual work to try to be a different person within that institution. And we all know that's different. That's difficult. If the institution is going to be more humane, it needs to support humanity. And the way policing is set up right now, that is not the case. And so yeah, people are out here practicing white supremacy culture, and know how to protect white bodies, and don't see Black people as fully human. And just because you're Black doesn't mean you're not one of the perpetrators of that.
Right.
Say it. Say I. So many of our Black brothers and sisters have internalized these tenets of white supremacy and perpetuate the same kind of oppression and suppression that we're talking about on other Black bodies. When we look at the city of Detroit, a predominantly Black city with a lot of Black people in power, we can make that argument. And I think it's the perfect segue to talk about the city council vote on the extension of the DataWorks contract on facial recognition. Everybody on city council is a person of color except one person. Everybody, right?
He's a
And
criminal. He's the only
who has been
criminal.
indicted.
And he was sitting up here, and you know what? I should know everything about him. Let him be Black. I would know his bank account number. I'd know his childhood home, all his best friends when he was 3 years old. Because when a Black person commits a crime, all is told. The news media will not leave him alone. Really, if I could do anything, I have Bridge Magazine. Just give me all the information on him. But anyway, so
Stay focused.
he wants to
And
survey.
so
Come on.
we see this vote come to extend the contract even after all of the public comment for that particular
For
piece
2 years, I mean,
for
people been.
years has been a dissenting one. What do you make of that? Who are they talking to justify this vote, even after on record numerous people saying no?
Yeah, I mean, it's money. It's, Dr. King called for a radical revolution of values in the 60s and asked us to not prefer property and machines over people. And clearly this city has really bought into the idea that the preservation of property, and innovation, and biometric data extraction is a priority over humans. And so by that I mean, if you look at the programs that have been launched in Detroit, the Stingray technology, where cell phone tracking, the real time crime centers, Project Greenlight, the license plate readers. There's so much stuff that's been implemented in the city, that just does not prioritize humans, even though there's been evidence through MIT, through NIST, through data scientists all over the world who've said this is a racially biased system, and technology is going to misidentify darker skin tones. Detroit is 80% Black. We've already had 2 misidentifications that we know of. We know there'll be many more to come. And they just doubled down on it. And we even had city council folks who voted for it say, I'm afraid of this technology. I fear that I'm going to be misidentified. But we have to give the city something. We have to give the residents something. And so to me, that just shows that there is no will to challenge and stand up for the residents of the city. It's very disheartening that we have something like face recognition in Detroit, the last remaining one of the last remaining black meccas, while 13 other predominantly white cities have banned this and counting, are continuing to ban face recognition.
Mm.
And so it says a lot, that we are being put under social control. I don't think people realize there are over 2,000 green light cameras at this point at over 700 businesses. Something that started at 8 or 9 gas stations in 2016 is now over 700 businesses. We're talking about rec centers, religious centers, public housing, schools. And so we're
I saw
literally,
an apartment building the other day.
yeah, like restaurants. I mean, we're literally in a perpetual lineup. And I just want to say that folks who are sitting back and, others in Michigan thinking like, oh, that's a Detroit issue. No, honey, if you have a state ID or a driver's license since 1999, you
Your
are in
information
that
is-
database.
Yeah.
You know, that's why they picked up Robert Williams in Farmington Hills, minding his business. And so, yeah, people better go on ahead and wake up about this issue, or it's going to be a lot of people trying to fight their way out of a justice system that have never even interacted with law enforcement.
So
And
there are
it's
some
dangerous.
people, there are some people who would counter what you are saying and cite the numerous reports that have recently come out about our city being the most dangerous city in the United States of America this past year, and use that as justification to create a narrative around using this kind of technology. What is your answer to that?
Run that $30 million that y'all spent on this system that obviously doesn't work. So how are we number one in crime, and y'all spent $30 million and you got 700 surveillance cameras. You got I mean, that listen, it's literally not right rocket science. Like, what is happening? Like, why are we continuing to allow them to come out with this rhetoric about safety, and they've spent $30 million on this program? They have 3 real-time crime centers. They literally sitting in there like the bat cave, bless you, looking at surveillance cameras all day, and we still number one. So
Can I?
that lets us know it doesn't create safety.
Right, because the reality, if I'm not mistaken, Tawana, is that this was an extension of an existing program. It's not like they were saying, let's try something new so that now we'll be safe. This is, let's continue doing the same crap we were doing before, but this time we're going to get a different result, right?
Yeah, and let me be real. I don't know if I'm getting trouble for this statement, but we got to look at the origins of Project Greenlight, right? Dan Gilbert. Dan Gilbert had his own surveillance system, and police was using that surveillance system. And then now we have our own version of it. And so we just got to, those are the things we have to just look at. We have to look at why we have this type of data extraction.
When I think of the Detroit growing up and the Detroit now, it's so crazy. Like I remember when as a child I could go to Belle Isle and it wasn't illegal to be outside at 11 p.m. You
Hmm.
know, I remember I could just walk on any property downtown and I could stand there all day and night if I wanted to. Maybe I didn't want to stand there. I have been escorted out of Belle Isle at 10 p.m. I'm like, are you serious? I
You
got state troopers rounding me
have
up
been
and taking
pushed
me out.
away from
I
campus
cannot
marching.
believe this, but my sister and brother-in-law belong to the Detroit Yacht Club. So if I could be there until I want to. I can drink there if I want to. I can't drink on the island. So you cannot tell me that this is not a policy that's directed at people without money or privilege. You can't even get on the Belle Isle unless you are a member of the yacht club on some hot summer days. You have to show your membership in order to get on, And so I can see the disparity. I'm standing there at the foot of Belle Isle looking at this white state trooper turning Black people away. And I'm thinking, this can't be safe for him, because I'm so angry. I cannot even imagine how some other folks are feeling right now. Just the feeling that the city does not really belong to residents in the way that it did. It's not our city. We are given permission to be in certain places at certain times. But I remember the days before the curfew where, you know, we could be places because a park belonged to the people. And maybe it wasn't a good idea to be there at this time, but you weren't being overly policed in the way that you are. How do you respond to that? I mean, because you're creating a status offense if you're on the river walk at 10:01 p.m. And Dan Gilbert's private police will let you know if you're there, because aren't those spaces policed by a private individual?
Yeah, and I just really want people to think back at when he was drilling cameras into the brick and mortar of businesses that he didn't even own, and had launched his own private, similar to the Real Time Crime Center. And so nothing is not accidental. It's not accidental. And I'm really concerned if we get another 4 years of this current administration, and one of the blackest cities in America is completely covered with surveillance cameras, federal agents, and all sorts of other mechanisms to keep us under social control. What's going to happen to the residents of the city? And so, I'm just always thinking at the bigger, the looking a little bit further out at the bigger picture, because all of this happened under Trump.
Well,
All of this happened under Trump. We came under this surveillance at the onset of Trump's administration, and I honestly just don't think it's an accident.
right. And I like to look at the city, and all of this happened under Trump. But I like to think of the city, and for years I felt like Detroit had a lot in common with Cuba.
Oh
When
yeah, I wrote about that too.
Cuba,
Got to share
did
it
you?
with you. Yeah.
This is my Virgo sister. Right here.
I was there when Fidel Castro died. I don't know how I couldn't have planned a more unique historic trip, but yeah.
So yeah, so I definitely want to read that. But I think of it as Cuba. I remember when Coleman Young took over as mayor, a lot of businesses disinvested in the city of Detroit.
Mhm.
Corporations disinvested. Banks stopped making loans in the city of Detroit. And they continued that behavior until Dennis Archer became mayor. And then the floodgates opened. But when the
Mhm.
floodgates opened, they did not open to the people in the city. They opened to people to establish their perch in the city of Detroit, right?
Yeah.
And so now we're going to take it back. And so I've been reading and researching a lot about this whole concept of Detroit as a colony and what is a colonial power. Is a colonial
Mm.
power where you control the people and the labor and you extract resources, but you've got to put your foothold in the community. You've got to establish your stronghold so that you can maintain control over all of this. And I don't think we see what's happening, but you have the complete loss of Black power in some sectors in the city of Detroit in ways that we would have found unimaginable 20 years ago. And yet here
Yeah.
we are. We don't control our water. We don't really control what's happening with economic development in the city. We have very little input into the economic development agenda for the city. And, the land bank, all of the economic development engines, somehow all of the things lead to a mayor who feels very disconnected from the lives of the people who I love and care about, including myself. So I'm just wondering, how we take this how do we interpret this? Is this just about one thing? Is it just about surveillance, or is it about um, really an attempt to change the nature of who Detroit is and what Detroit is so that we no longer have the power and influence we had in the past?
It's so complicated. My head is always in the space of biometrics, and always thinking about how, well, because I'm in that world so much, a lot of us know that our data is literally the new oil. And there's a lot of benefits to extracting biometrics and data from Detroit, particularly. And everything that's being modeled here is being packaged up, and I mean, even overseas, like they're packaging up our surveillance program and a lot of the things that they've rolled out here, and trying to lay them out in Black and brown communities all over the United States, and even in some instances out of the country. And so while we're here resisting on the ground, they're out there saying, we've had a tremendous success rate with this real-time surveillance program. And I would also argue that it's not an accident that during the height of the pandemic, if you were watching Trump on TV, he was demonizing Whitmer and championing Duggan. Now, when have you ever seen him as a Republican president on TV giving kudos to a Democrat mayor? And so those were things that I was paying attention to. That and and so I know I'm like doing name dropping that I don't normally do, but I just paid attention to the fact that our contact tracing contract went to Dan Gilbert. He's not in the medical industry. He's not in medicine. And so like it really is about the data. It really is about the data, and I know that that's difficult for folks to grasp because they're not waking up every day doing that work like I am. But I think that we're going to learn over the next couple of years just how significant it is that we have as many surveillance cameras as we have, and that we're being surveilled in the way that we're being surveilled.
I'm confused when you say it's about the data.
Hmm.
Why would the data of Detroiters be like gold? What's the value of the data to a market? Is it they're testing out ways to do things that they can replicate in other places and their desire to take over the world, like the cartoon characters, or is it something more specific?
Well, if we look at face recognition as an example, right now it doesn't recognize darker skin tones, right? So what better way to test case it than to implement it in a predominantly Black city? So you can get, if you connect that with a real-time crime surveillance program, and you put 700, and actually the mayor is pursuing 4,000 cameras. If you lay those cameras out all over the city, how whose images are you going to get in that system? Who's going to be fed into those algorithms? And so we're going to fix the system, like and we know that fixing of the system is not a solution. So a lot of the argument for pursuing and extending these licenses is so that it can get better, so that the algorithms can get better at reading Black people. And so in order for that to happen, you need more Black people to be read. And so that is one of the reasons why City Council passed that contract and gave another $200,000 to DPD, because they're arguing that it's going to get better. They need this maintenance, they need extensions of these licenses. But if you pay attention to the 13 cities that have banned, predominantly white cities, and I want to emphasize this because it reads them accurately. And they're saying, no, this is a violation of our civil liberties, our privacy, and our civil rights. Well, Black people don't get a chance to say that. We don't get to say it's a violation of our civil liberties and our civil rights. People don't want to hear that because they look at us as inherently criminal and dangerous and worthy of being surveilled and socially controlled. So the only argument that they have listened to is the fact that it misidentifies us. So because DPD has convinced City Council that, well, we just need to make the system better. That's why they approve the money, because they're thinking like, we'll just get it to act better on Black people. It's not about civil liberties and civil rights. We don't care about that. If we cared about that, they wouldn't have 700 surveillance cameras. They wouldn't have drones. They wouldn't have surveillance helicopters. They wouldn't have license plate readers on the green light cameras and on the traffic lights. So it's not, they don't value the civil liberties and the civil rights in Detroit. Detroit is a guinea pig, has been a guinea pig for at least a half century, since it's been a predominantly Black city. It's been a guinea pig for like ways to replicate harms in smaller Black and brown communities. And so, yeah, that's why you saw emergency managers from here go to Flint, you know. So it's anything that succeeds here, they just kind of bottle it up and send it somewhere else.
There's no, I can't think of her name right now. Simone Lightfoot says, we're Big Mama. Detroit is Big Mama.
Yeah.
And that kind of puts me in mind of that. It also tells me, though, that there is a real value to Black labor, and this is something that you pointed out. There's a value to markets that are built on Black pain, whether it is prisons or privatized schools that don't do a very good job, or check cashing places,
The
or
fear economy.
places, or
Mhm.
the fear economy. We've built these. There's a value to us being in these situations. People make money off of it, and I think that we sometimes have to ask ourselves who benefits. And
Yeah.
what I'm hearing from you is that when it comes to face recognition, when it comes to some of these data portals, Dan Gilbert personally, his companies benefit. And when it comes
Yeah.
to some of the other things, there's people in our larger society who benefit by extracting value from people inside of Detroit. And our system is not designed to uphold the rights and needs of people who live in Detroit, who are treated in many, if not most instances, more as subjects than as citizens, because
Yeah.
citizens are the purpose of the law. Citizens are the purpose of the right. Rights were enshrined to protect citizens. And if those rights are routinely denied us, then we are really subjects to
Yeah.
the control of somebody else, right?
Yeah. Well, what people don't, so Detroit is getting paid back, much like how the country responded to Barack Obama being elected as Black president, right? There was
Mhm.
a time when Detroit boasted the highest home ownership in the country, where Black businesses were just vibrant and thriving, where we were literally a model for Black self determination across the United States, right? And so there's a resentment of that kind of thing. And so we've been in perpetual punishment for a half century. If you
Mm.
look back at when Coleman Young was elected to mayor, they've been narratively targeting us consistently since that point. And you can point to movies. If you look at 1977, A Fistful of Yen, and a film where they're literally torturing quote unquote criminals in this film, right? And the person that they thought was the most heinous of the violators was like this CIA agent spy. And mind you, the person who was punishing people, they had done things, they had beheaded people, they had done all these torturous things to these quote unquote criminals. When they got to this guy who was supposed to be the worst of the worst, his punishment was to take him to Detroit. And he literally screams, "No, not Detroit, anywhere but Detroit." And
Mhm.
so they have been doing a number on Detroit for a literal half century, a
Yeah.
literal half century.
So
So
I've
anywhere that
been,
I've traveled in the world, people are like, Detroit, for the last 20 some years, since I've been like really traveling, and then now the last 5 years, oh, aren't you happy Detroit is coming back? And when I hear Detroit is coming back, I hear Make America Great Again. That's what I
Oh,
hear. That's what
I've been screaming this from the rooftops that in addition to all of the other battles that we are in, one of the most significant ones is the narrative war that we are in. You are speaking to that and how messages get cascaded and internalized as truth when those of us who are on the ground know that a lot of those messages are just inherently false. And so how do you build campaigns like surveillance is it safety to is it's a campaign, but it's also a shift in narrative and in thinking, taking into account the years and years of unlearning and undoing that we have to do about ourselves and our city, as well as the world about
Yeah.
our city. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the campaigns that we're doing, and there's actually a few this weekend in different neighborhoods. We've been in collaboration with like folks like Freedom Growers in the Box Center and Green Light Black Futures, among others, to have a campaign called Green Shares, Not Green Lights. And it's
yeah.
literally asking community members come back to the front porches, look out for each other, see each other, don't watch each other. You know what I'm saying? And so this campaign is tremendous because people are tapping into that nostalgia of when they felt safe. When you ask folks a time when they felt safe, they don't instantly go to like police and law enforcement. They go to police and law enforcement when you ask them if they feel safe and they say no. And then they like, we need more police. But if you ask them a time when they felt safe, they say, well, when we knew who our neighbors were, when we had more block clubs, when we were doing things in the community, when we had rec centers, that's when people say they felt safe.
Make
And
their
so the
community
green,
resource.
exact walkable grocery stores, schools that weren't closed. I mean,
And
um,
the two examples I use, if I had a neighbor to call, I would have said, hey, I think somebody's at my door. Can you come check it out? As opposed to calling the police, right?
yeah.
But knowing a neighbor can come help me out. Single woman alone by myself. In certain situations, you call on family and neighbors who are near you to provide you with some protection. Whereas now we don't have that, and we are forced to 911, which won't come. And then when they do, they don't do the right thing all the time. So that's a really good point. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a really, really important point, is reconstituting our communities. I want to talk a little bit. I know that we're going long, but I love talking to you
Same.
about how the foreclosure crisis contributed, though, to the feelings of destroying our neighborhoods, destroying the quality of life. I've
Mm-hmm.
talked to so many residents who felt okay. And then the residents across the street next door to them lost their homes to foreclosure. And either you have a succession of strangers moving in, or you have a vacant that's being occupied by a squatter who they don't know, or the home is at risk of being burned down. And so I hear more from people about that loss of safety than anything else. And it seems like the solution there is another one where we really talk about how do we keep people in their homes? How do we keep neighborhoods in a cohesive state so that people don't end up in, this no man's land? Do you have
Yeah,
thoughts?
I mean, here I go saying his name again, but I think people need to think back to when the hardest hit funds were taken away from the programs that would have kept people in their homes and diverted to, like, blight and the land bank. Gilbert had a lot to do with that as well. I mean, that he went to the White House under Obama, and requested to have those funds diverted. And that is evidence. Those are things that can be researched. And so I think it's really important for us to think about how much power money has over the decisions and the policies that are made in the city of Detroit. And so the residents haven't even been made whole from the $600 million that was taken from them, missed tax and homes that people lost, tens of thousands of homes. I mean, at one point you could look at the map and every aspect of the map was covered with tax foreclosures. And so those are sort of things, like the residents have not been made whole in that, and people have gotten wealthier and wealthier while residents have been displaced. But it's all a part of the plan to remove the least desirable residents and replace them with residents that are considered more vibrant and greater contributors for no fault of their own, right? And so, yeah, I think that it's been a great disparity what has happened to Detroit. But I also think that we'll win at the end of the day, because as the old quote says, truth is on the side of the oppressed. And I just really think that at the end of the day, that Detroiters will rise again in defense of this city, and we'll get some vibrancy back that is not handed down to us, but that will come from the grassroots as it always has. And so, yeah, and I think that the Detroiters Bill of Rights is a great example of how hundreds of organizations, hundreds and hundreds of residents, most impacted residents included, from disabilities to folks who don't have mobility on the buses, to folks who feel heavily surveilled, to folks who have been displaced in their homes, coming together and saying, like, look, this is our city constitution, and we want to see it represent the people of the city. And so I just really think that we have an awesome opportunity in this painful moment. Grace Lee Boggs would say, with every crisis comes opportunity. And I think that we're at the moment of opportunity, and that folks are really being using their imaginations now, because we're in the middle of a pandemic and global uprisings in defense of Black lives, something that I've never experienced in my whole lifetime. The whole world saying Black Lives Matter. You ever experienced the whole world saying Black Lives Matter? Never. And you know, when will we get this opportunity again?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think that Detroiters have been at this a long time. Black Detroit has been at the forefront, at the vanguard of Black liberation for
Ashe.
The
centuries.
mother of movements.
Okay, people
Hmm.
came here to escape slavery on the a route to the Underground Railroad, and I mean, I'm reading this book, The Making of Black Detroit, at the time
Hmm.
in the age of Henry Ford, and whoa, when you look at the Black power that was there, my ancestors were there doing their due in the city of Detroit, and I just think that people should not underestimate Detroiters. I
No, they
think
shouldn't.
that the politicians who are currently in office should not estimate Detroiters, because I think that the political will has shifted in ways that will show up this November and next November. And it is really up to them to get on board. There's only so many times that the president can compliment the police chief for carrying out his agenda, and people not understand that the police chief is not acting on their agenda. Last question for you. Did you see the story in the Metro Times
Which one?
about the one about the vibe in the community around policing and featuring Ray Winans and a Black Republican woman?
Okay, I think, well, all right. Juana, do you have a button you want to put on that reaction? Anything you
That
want?
story is one of the reasons why we put out Riverwise magazine, shameless plug, and why Bridge and why Bridge magazine exists, and other, you know, magazines exist that's telling the heartbeat of community members um who are self-determinant, and who will see to the interests of their neighbors. And I think that any person, I have said this and I will continue to say this, I don't care whether you on law enforcement or you're not on law enforcement. If you looking at a global movement in defense of Black lives, a global movement, and your solution, your response is, well, we don't need to do nothing different. We, you know, we the only exempt city to any type of transformation needed. Like, I mean, I don't know anybody who sees a wave and a sweep of rejuvenated energy asking to defend Black lives, and then stands up in a Black city and goes, oh, we don't need none of that change here. Like, I can't for the life of me even rationalize that type of thinking.
A
And
Black
I'll,
city.
exactly, and I'll finally say that we should be the model. We should, they should, everybody should have been, you know, we want to make sure that the Black cities become whole as an example, so that we can replicate that. Who can look at this city that we had to beg to get water back on at the height of a pandemic, that had officer what is Dwayne Brow beat the crap out of a naked woman in a hospital just a few months ago, um and so many other things happen, and say that we don't need some kind of reform or transformation within our city. Who can say that in good conscience, whether you on the force or off the force? And I really, really hate when activists are being lifted, quote unquote activists are being lifted up as the voice of no change needed. Like, that's contradictory to the thing that you say that you're about. Like, why
Well,
would you stand in the way of transformation? And you know,
I've
anyway, I could.
never been more disappointed in my people than I am right now. I'll be really honest with you.
It's
Every
hard.
single time I see a person who I thought was an ally standing up and saying, in the poorest, blackest, most dangerous city in America, and you have the nerve to say this when we have $600 million in overtaxation, when you have the tax foreclosure crisis that took 1 in 4 homes, and a foreclosure crisis that took 1 in 3, to stand up and say we don't have problems with racism in Detroit, with our school districts completely just destroyed and dismantled by racist public policy, to say that to people who are still living with lead poisoning and still dealing with every environmental hazard. And like you said, we had our water system taken from us, and we're overcharged more than just about any place in the nation for a sewage system that still is backing up into our homes. And yet you say we don't need changes in the city. Black lives already matter here. It's
We had
offensive.
1,500 people die to COVID.
Yes.
We had almost half the state's deaths just here.
Hmm.
I'm right there with you. I mean, the thing is, I try to give us, some benefit of the doubt because we all been indoctrinated into this system. But I'll tell you, like people standing in the way of liberation is just that look like us is real hard to swallow.
You
It's real
understand
hard to
me?
swallow.
You
It's
understand me. Woo,
That's
man.
why I push for co-liberation. I'm that ally stuff
Yes,
out the window. Out the
yes,
window. It's too
yes.
optional, opt in, opt out.
But yeah,
I want to plug your co-liberation deck. ECN does these to Donna, actually. ECN does these stakeholder advisory group meetings, and I think it would be really impactful for residents to hear and experience that deck that you teach so eloquently on. It is, it's just, it's everything.
oh, I definitely want to use that. Because listen, I could listen to Tawana speak forever anyway.
Yeah.
And I think our residents would really
Same.
love it because I think that what you're really speaking, I'll be honest with you. I mean, you can don't take Black people in Detroit are really intelligent. We have long memories and we have high expectations for how we are treated, unlike Black people in many other places.
Hmm.
And so I think there's a readiness to hear from you, greater readiness to hear from you, and to understand the whole co-liberation concept, which I have not had the privilege to hear, but I know it's great. So
I'm
let's
such
figure
a
out how to make.
fan. Like I'm such a fan.
Yeah, yeah. And then, in terms of Riverwise, I actually wrote an article a long time ago for Riverwise, and I want to get more involved in that and make sure our community gets it. So we usually pass out Riverwise, but now that everything is online, we need ways to share online content that you're producing. Do you have an easy way for people to access that?
Yeah, so the editions are on the website riverwisedetroit.org. The not this special edition, which we have been passing out boxes and going door to door with the new edition. It's a special edition that talks about the current crises in policing, including in Detroit, as well as green light and face recognition and the activism that's happening. And so yeah, so the magazine, we've been doing like the digital version, as well as we still print the 10,000 copies. So
There's some people who need a printed copy. And then there's some
yeah.
people like me who need something electronic. So hopefully we can share both.
Yeah,
Again,
absolutely.
we had been distributing them in our office, always had them in our coffee tables, and they always went real quickly. But we do want to promote alternative community-owned journalism as a corrective to the
As
commercial
a
media
counter,
that get things
correct,
wrong all
as
of the
a counter
time. We
to
need to
that narrative.
correct that stuff. I
Absolutely.
mean,
It was born out of the ending of Michigan Citizen. That's what was the
That's right.
inspiration. And
That's
oh,
right. Talk about
yeah,
it.
and
Come on now.
and I'll tell you the cover of it. This special edition is Sydney James mural of Malice Green with all the names, way too many.
Yeah.
That's the cover of this the front and back cover of this edition.
Can't wait to
okay.
see it. Tawana.
I need to get my copy. How am I going to get it?
You can get it from reach out through riverwisedetroit.org or contact me, and I get you some.
All right, love to get them. All right.
Thank you so much for joining us,
Yeah.
Tawana. If you have topics that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Authentically Detroit, or email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Donna, it is time for shout outs.
Well, I would like to shout out Detroit Disability Power for their Get Out the Vote initiative. They are supporting a number of organizations, including ours, reaching 10 to 15,000 people each. I think Detroit Disability Power is an outstanding organization that is really working to help people understand the contributions and value of people who are disabled, and also demand that we treat them with equity and justice. So I'm excited about partnering with them on this initiative. ECM will be one of the organizations. I would like to shout out Detroit Action for their work in getting out the vote. I think that the work that they are doing is also important. And I need to shout out Ms. Petty, Honeycomb Petty, Tawana Honeycomb Petty, for winning the Arts Award. I was so excited
Thank
to read that
you.
she won. You're so deep, people forget you're a poet, right? It's like she's an artist and she's deep. So if you can share just a little bit about the award.
Yeah, it was really a surprise. Art Matters Foundation actually reached out to me and said that we've been following your work and we'd like to give you a seed to keep going. And it came at a tremendous time. You know, it's one of the first times that I didn't apply for something and I got it. And so that was, I was really grateful for that. So it's a national award. And yeah, I'm really honored.
Okay. And I would like to shout out my nephew, Reynaldo de Guzman, who lives in Rochester, New York, and has been on the streets just observing what's happened. He created a video. I'm trying to find the name of the video,
It's
but he created,
amazing. I have it up. Hold on.
it's called
A
um,
litany of,
a litany for survival, a
yeah.
litany for survival. And he documents the protest movement in Rochester, New York. It's been accepted in some art competitions. It's going to be released via Comcast and in, I think it's a Portland art competition, but whatever. I mean, Ray put his money where his mouth is. He was out there in the streets and got struck by 11 rubber bullets in his neck and had
Wow.
could not walk the next day. He was standing there with press credentials with the film crew, but he is, he's the firstborn in our family, so he's my heart, right? And for him to be out there putting his body and his mind on the line and really creating art out of it, I just admire it so much. So I'm going to make sure everybody gets a chance to see it when it's finally released. Shout out, Ray.
Wow.
I,
Nice. I'm glad he's okay.
I want to shout out my younger brother, Brian, who's serving time in the Michigan Department of Corrections, recently diagnosed with COVID on Friday of last week. My I am urging the listeners to send your thoughts and prayers to my baby bro, so that he can make a full recovery while incarcerated. Want to shout out the East Side Extravaganza happening on October 22nd virtually. You can go to ecn-detroit.org to RSVP or submit a sponsorship or a silent auction gift today. Also, the Most Outstanding on the East Side awards are live and you can vote there as well. And to that end, if you follow Eastside Community Network on Instagram and Facebook, you'll see some videos of some millennial influencers talking about the East Side and ECN. And you have Detroit Hives on there, Detroit's chief storyteller Eric Thomas debuted today, and more. So stay tuned with that. Shout out to Donna, my co-host, for manning the ship all by herself last week while I vacation. I told her, like, I want a real vacation. I'm not reading news. I don't want to record. I don't want to do anything. Donna and I will also be making an appearance at the Detroit Podcast Festival alongside Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and former gubernatorial candidate Abdul El Sayed on October the 18th at 6 p.m. We will give you the details of that in the description of the podcast. I will be making an appearance at the Georgia Walks Summit happening on October 23rd at 11 a.m. You want to register for that session. Also, shout out to Bryce Detroit and his signage, "Hood Closed to Gentrifiers." What an amazing campaign. Somebody actually stole the signage. And so he's figuring out what to do and is asking for support. So hit up Bryce Detroit on Facebook or Instagram, literally Bryce Detroit, and you can figure out how to support his messaging campaign. Also, while we're talking about the North End, Rashawn Foster in the North End for her community missionary status and her upcoming panel at Michigan Community Development Association annual fall conference. I think this is her first panel. She reached out to me today and was super excited, and I wanted to encourage her on the air. And DFC laid the groundwork for their equity work today. They released a framework by which they'll be working to achieve economic equity in the city. So shout out to Anika Goss Foster and our friend who says that Authentically Detroit is required listening, Nicole Brown. We love you, sister. Tawana, you have shout outs?
Yeah, I'll just say, look out for more from Green Chairs Not Green Lights campaign. And you can actually follow Green Chairs Not Green Lights at greenchairsnotgreenlights.org. Get you a t-shirt, support the campaign, and start putting some chairs out on the front porches and start looking out for each other, y'all.
I know that's right.
Um,
Go ahead.
I'm also going to be on the closing plenary for the Detroit Vibrant Communities Conference on Friday at 9:45 a.m. talking about
Right, y'all.
poverty in Michigan and what we can do to address it. I've got all the solutions. I'm just joking. I have some ideas, so hopefully they will be heard. When we start talking about changing things, we have to talk about just more than changing laws or changing programs. We need to talk about changing systems and really challenging our systems to be aligned with justice. So I'm excited about that panel and really trying to push the envelope.
Go ahead. Justice aligned.
Joining us, Tawana, you have been amazing as usual. Great talking to you, and thank you for your commitment and your scholarship, because just even looking at your background, I can tell you read a whole lot and you have all these referencing.
All the books you named right back here.
So yeah, we need to talk more often. We need a book club. I need someone to be able to roll these things off with. I'm reading them and I'm trying to talk, and it's like, wow, I'm all by myself. So I'm gonna have to call you one day and just bounce some ideas off you. So thank you for joining us. I know you're a very busy and engaged person in this community. And thank you, Orlando, for coming back to our right. It was hard alone.
Oh, it's our pleasure. This is our baby. Thank you for listening, everybody. We want you to catch the wave.